Hey there, welcome to episode 61 of the FFS Talk audio program. I'm your host, Dan Hugo. Today we are recording at around 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Thursday, January 23rd, 2025. I've been recording in the afternoon lately. I'm going to move back to the mornings if possible. My computer is still, it's actually gotten better. I've mitigated some of the issues, but we'll talk about some other things during this episode, which is about owning your own. Own your own is the premise. This is dovetailing off of the previous episode, episode 60, Social Media Chaos, about the state of the social media platforms lately, TikTok and X and so on. Well, I should say the social media platforms everybody seems to know about. You can add Blue Sky on there. Nobody's talking about Fediverse platforms, but that's where I will end my plugging of that. I'm going to mention it once or twice, but this is not about social networking so much as the rest of the story that nobody talks about anymore. This is not intended to be paranoid. It might sound like it, but it's practical. It's more keeping an eye out for yourself because it's hard to know who else will. So on that note, by the way, if you're not familiar with FFS Talk, if maybe this is your first time coming by, this is an episode about owning your own. It's an audio program about what works, what doesn't, and what we might do about it. So the context is, what does it mean to own your own? What works about that? What needs some attention and so on? Not necessarily in that order, but hopefully, and especially if this were to be a dialogue or a conversation with other people, and every single episode, including this one up to now, is essentially seeds planted for additional conversation into the future. Ideally, we would arrive at some sort of possible solutions or ideas to ponder and so on. So if I present them, they're sort of, there's no conversation that leads there. Perhaps there will be. Consider that. So with all that in mind, if you are able to locate this episode, surely you're able to locate the episode description, which contains show notes and 3 links. They're actually all from the previous episode as well. 2 shameless self-promotion as usual, and then 1 to the IndieWeb website, which we'll talk about briefly in a moment. So I'm going to read the summary. Oh, by the way, do you know what FFS means? If you don't, you should hang out with more Irish people. I can't believe I forgot to point that out. FFS. The summary of today's episode, which I will read, is as follows. We talked about social media, chaos in that space, with and between the big players, and taking back our online presence, making use of the Fediverse, for example, to syndicate our own content, which we should own, by the way. But what about everything else? Indeed. Like podcasts and video streams and standalone content and so on. The links for today's episode, like I said, the first 2, shameless self-promotion. These are buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo and Ko-fi.com, Ko-fi. It's actually a hyphen, Ko-fi.com/DanHugo. These are not, you don't have to spend any money. No obligation to spend money. You can if you want. Buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo is has a profile page. It's like a freeform link tree. I have links to my other audio programs, my GitHub projects, a little background information about me, and the posts section where I post now weekly on Mondays, a Buy Me an Update micro episode. Will be on episode 10 on the next Monday. So episode 9 was published earlier this week. See how that works? These are what were the episodes about in the previous week and what's coming up for the current week. Not necessarily episode topics for the current week, but anything related to current events or servers that I need to deploy, and that's particularly poignant today for this episode. And anything else, it's a central place to make an announcement or point something out that affects my other audio programs or other projects or something. So single point of contact, and it's hosted exclusively on Buy Me a Coffee. This is not a paid promotion or anything like that. It's just something I'm trying out. Ko-fi.com/DanHugo, there's posting there of text content. They do the media content posts in a different way, so the posting of the audio directly on Buy Me a Coffee works out better. So I'll leave that there. Again, no obligation, but there are links and other resources, especially on Buy Me a Coffee, patreon.com/DanHugo. Links are plenty. And the Posse article, once again, the indieweb.org/POSSE. Publish on your own server. So PO, publish on, and then in parentheses, your own, and then S, server, POS, and then syndicate elsewhere, SE. That means publish on your own blog or on your own website, and then share links to those things on other websites, on Twitter, X, Facebook, Reddit, what else? Blue Sky, Instagram, for as much as Instagram enables linking, and anything else that's out there. And also consider Fediverse websites like Mastodon, PixelFed for Instagram is like an Instagram competitor. What else? Lemmy is a Reddit competitor. So they're essentially parity, not parody platforms, either published and deployed or in development to enable some of the same services we've all grown to dislike, but that you can actually control yourself by deploying your own. So the joys of open source software. The show can now begin. We've finished that part. Let's get on with it then. So more than social, as I just mentioned, there's more to it than just the social media platform. So we can talk about those other things today. In our previous episode, the notion that locking ourselves into the big social media platforms is not a great idea. Hopefully everyone is slowly but surely reaching that conclusion. They've become very tribal. They've become a question of what am I going to be allowed to do? What do I have to deal with? And so on. You don't have any control over someone else's platform, especially if you're using it for free. If you're not paying, and even if you are paying, it's not always enough, right? You're just a normal person paying. You still have to deal with the stuff that the rest of the people that are paying that small amount need to deal with. So just because you're paying in cash or paying with your content, right? Every time you post something on Facebook, you're adding to their bottom line. Really, when you think about it, Facebook doesn't exist without its users posting as much as possible. They're going to have AI accounts and AI content and AI engagement. We'll see where that goes. It didn't go over well initially, but the point is the big platforms are becoming the big platforms. And I've talked about Cory Doctorow's impoopification, and I've made that a nicer word. You can look that up. You can find it. I've linked to it in many places in my various audio programs whenever it's relevant. Eventually, all of these platforms that are profit-driven, they go public, they're beholden to their shareholders. They become less about you and your enjoyment and more about profit. And so they become less and less pleasant and so on. Okay, enough about that. There are alternatives called the Fediverse and so on. They not only exist, but are competitive today. So I mentioned some of those offerings that are available now, and there will only be more. In case you're curious, the things, the pieces, the software components, the protocols that enable the Fediverse are not brand new. They've been around. I just saw today, I think it was today or yesterday, was the 7th anniversary since ActivityPub became a published standard of the W3C, the World Wide Web Consortium. I think that's what it is. I think it's consortium. The standards body that tries to make the web interoperable. So ActivityPub, I think, is 7 years old. It is about publishing activity streams, which are even older. And Mastodon is what? I think it's 4 years old, 6 years old, somewhere in there. It didn't come out immediately with ActivityPub, but it's been around longer than 10 minutes. I honestly should know. I think it might be 6 years, but I know it's at least 4. I think it's 4, but I think it might be 6. So yeah, these are not new. There are new ideas evolving and emerging, but the underpinnings themselves are mature and maturing, evolving, responding to challenges. The more you deploy something with wider reach and engagement, the more you'll find the little corner cases and edge conditions that you can then make better. And you can do it in the open source projects for the win. The question is, what about the other technology that you surround yourself with and even depend upon? Hopefully you are not running your life on X or Blue Sky. You got your mobile devices, you got your computer, your laptop, your internet connection, your tablets, your self-driving cars, your robotic vacuums, all this stuff, and only more. So is this yelling at clouds, maybe? The old guy yelling at clouds? No. Like I said, more practical. It may seem like it. Anyone who I've been in tech for a long time. So anyone who's actually that has the time or the interest or the sort of the relevant background so that you don't have to start from scratch, right? So I know a lot of the terms and whatnot, and I'm even surprised with what's happening over the last few years, at least, say the last 10 years, but only more so, only accelerating. It is rare to purchase big software applications now. You used to buy shrink-wrapped, Microsoft Word or whatever, install it on your computer with floppy disks or CD-ROM. Most of the tools, even platforms you depend on today, have moved to the cloud. Sometimes with a subscription model, sometimes you have to pay some monthly or annual, always subject to change with updates, changing requirements, changing terms of service, and so on, and always subject to outages, data breaches, and even data loss on occasion. And those are the horrible ones, right? Like, surely Google wouldn't delete, they just deleted a whole bunch of files for, accounts. They can delete accounts, they can close your account for terms violations, and maybe they won't even tell you exactly what they were. Hello, YouTube. That's never happened to me, but fingers crossed. So you'll always find out at the most inopportune times when these are the possibilities. Even if your software is on your own computer, does it work when you do not have an internet connection? Are you a Windows 10 user, perhaps, with reminders to upgrade to Windows 11 by October of this year? Maybe some of your installed applications or services are changing out from under you. I've heard tell that on a Windows 10 machine, Office 365, I think, was either removed or renamed or something. It became not useful. It wasn't where I left it, or it wasn't how I left it, or something. Anecdotal, but I haven't run Windows in a very long time. Thank goodness. Maybe some of your installed applications are changing though, so they could change in the way they function, or they may be removed. They may be disabled. They may be reduced in functionality. You never know. It's hard to say. Have you ever been in the middle of something important on your Windows machine when your whole system decides to pause for an update? We're rebooting now, and you're in the middle of recording a podcast. Luckily, that has not happened to me either. I haven't heard any horror stories about Mac OS, but I haven't used Mac OS in quite some time either, so I can only guess. Certainly, the iPhone is becoming problematic for a variety of reasons over the last 5 years. And Android is probably right up in there too. I know Android in general is a disappointment for me. Having worked on the Palm phone, the Palm Pre, and the Web OS, the Palm OS at the time, now Web OS, that was it was a game changer of sorts. It's just that nobody wanted to play that game. Obviously, this goes double or triple for our mobile devices, what I just said there, which are always connected and always sharing information with who knows how many cloud services, applications that are requesting your location data. It could be on the back. It might not even be on your phone. It may be contractual business agreements. You may be paying for advertising and you get user data, like where were they when they clicked on this ad or when they viewed it? Did they view the whole thing, etc.? Client-side scanning will almost certainly be a problem if it is used aggressively. They sell it as a way to protect you from content that you wouldn't approve of. If someone sends you contraband, pirated, illegal, injurious to underage people, etc., there are all kinds of things that client-side scanning will protect you from. The question is whether client-side scanning could be used also to check your local files for you, check your screen, make sure you aren't messaging anyone who's dangerous. Make sure they're not messaging you and you're dangerous. So client-side scanning will be something to be concerned about. It's your phone keeping an eye on you, even if you don't know it. And that's a real thing. Apple's already said that they do this, and I'm going to guess, I would bet at least $1 that Android is doing something similar or has the capability of it, certainly. And we don't even know. We don't know. These are closed systems, literally closed. Hard to even open them up to change the battery. So if we, now, are these going to be misused? Probably not. I mean, privacy mitigating technologies are never abused, especially by government law enforcement agencies, but also possibly by very wealthy people with access. We'll keep it there. Who's listening? Who, you never know. Hopefully everybody, right? Within their rights, though, you agree to these things. When you use a platform or a service, or you buy a cell phone, a mobile device, a tablet, a laptop even, and you're installing or comes pre-installed the Apple software, the Mac OS or Microsoft software, Windows, whatever, probably 11 by now, by default. I don't even know if they're allowing Windows 10 to be installed. You are subject to their terms of service that you agree to up front. Sometimes that isn't a great experience. But at the other end is a company, so you've agreed to their terms of service. They have the responsibility to enrich their shareholders' fiduciary responsibilities and to drive profit. So they can't necessarily say, yeah, but we want to give this away to our users to be cool. They can say that at first, and then things change. Cynical, yes, but also true most of the time. You kind of sign your rights away. There's even maybe a production by street. There may even be a clause in there that you're not allowed to sue them, that they will opt for arbitration in wherever. They may limit the locations, a state within the United States, and or who knows? It could be anything. Do you ever read your terms of service when you agree to them? So what are you getting yourself into? We have the right to scan all of the content on your mobile device and use it for AI training or to report questionable activity, et cetera, et cetera. Who knows? Have you read? Do you know? Does it say it in there anywhere? Publishing on social media is one thing. Like, usually you are a part of that. Usually you want to post things to social media, even though you probably shouldn't. But the files you store on your cloud drive, your list of contacts, your location history, which, by the way, Google now stores on your device, apparently, allegedly. But your location data is still escaping your device. It's still going to Google Maps or Apple Maps or Waze or who knows how many. Like most applications, either on your device or in the cloud somewhere on the back end, will either have direct or contractual access to location data and other activities. How often do you use your phone? Where are you when you use it, etc.? These are all things that can be purchased or exchanged and so on. It can be used to target you for advertising or other services, or who knows? All of the things that you are not storing locally, offline, hopefully, are subject to some terms, some rules, and the possibility of being stolen, shared, or outright deleted, accidentally or on purpose. I didn't go hunt this down, but there was a headline, and the article went into some detail about how it was a mistake. But Google either closed accounts or deleted the files but left the accounts of some agencies or organizations or some such, and it was not trivial. It's a reminder that even though you agree to this and that, and you might even be paying for a service, it doesn't mean human error, system failure, software bugs, hardware bugs. Who knows? There's any number of reasons where, but I had it backed up. Well, that also got broken or failed or deleted by accident. So you always have to be curious enough to know what your risks are, and then if if it would be horrible to lose something, make sure you don't have it in just one place. And I say that knowing that I really should be backing up my data more. And I laugh now, but I'll cry later. Somewhere in the middle, perhaps, publishing platforms like YouTube and Spotify. We'll just take those as examples. So you create something, you're not posting it on a social media platform. And I know the lines are blurring now. Twitter, you can post video and audio. YouTube has its communities and chats and whatnot. Spotify, I think, has some of that now. And they're leaning into video and audio. So the lines are blurring. Facebook has always been one of the larger photo sharing sites and so on. So let's take the YouTube and Spotify models, which are essentially content creator social platforms. So here you're creating something and then you're publishing it for the world in hopes that they will consume it, and it might be your business. So you might build a business or you develop an audience in general, and you do that on social media too. But the purpose of publishing on YouTube is to have an audience that will continue to consume your content and so on. Same with Spotify. I hope you're listening to this audio program on the regular, along with my others. I am talking to you. These are businesses. although I'm not in it for the money. Even if I was, I wouldn't be. They need advertisers. And so now the businesses are YouTube and Spotify. You may be building a business on their business, but end of the day, they are paying for the infrastructure, the platform, the interfaces, the tools, the bandwidth, all that. So you're getting a cut. You're getting a piece of the action for contributing to their platform, and you're supporting the platform by them getting their cut. And I don't know what YouTube's, is it 50-50 or something? I don't know what Spotify's doing with advertising. Bottom line, though, it is kind of a symbiotic relationship. No content, no YouTube. No YouTube, no content, right? So you kind of need each other. We need each other, I guess. And that gives them the right to dictate some terms, right? If you put up horrible content, nobody wants to advertise. They don't make money. You don't get to put up horrible content. So they are within their rights to limit our use of their platforms. We're not paying YouTube and Spotify to host our content. They would be different if we were. You can argue that you're paying by providing your content, which is your work, which has value. This audio program has value, believe it or not. So I'm posting it on Spotify, but in exchange for them hosting it and distributing it and publishing it and making it available and so on. So again, symbiotic business relationship, hopefully beneficial to all, not parasitic. So why just, I'll say that just last night, I was going to say why just last night. One of my episodes on a different audio program was flagged and removed for copyright violations. That's weird. I don't include copyright materials in my audio programs. So what gives? Now, it turns out I'm glad I received this email because my audio was corrupt, and this was helpful. It turns out the audio was just garbage, and their scanning tools probably said, this looks suspicious. We'll call it a copyright violation and remove it. So they did. So yeah, like I said, it turns out it was good that they did that. And it turns out also I had to re-record an hour of audio essay about keto, if you're curious. Keto, ketogenic, ketosis, all the cool words. So my audio was corrupt, and it was actually helpful that they sent me this email that said, we took your content down. Because I said, wait, what? And I went and checked, and it was awful. Like objectively screechy, horrible content that was bad. It would have been sort of embarrassing. It actually probably would have been, I'm not going to say injurious, but it would have been a very bad experience if someone downloaded it and was playing it on like earbuds or headphones. It was that screechy and horrible. But if it had been an actual emergency, if I had actually had, if it was a legitimate and reasonable quality piece of audio content, but it was mistakenly flagged as containing copyright, now I would need to appeal their decision and hope, fingers crossed, hope that my episode would be published or that I could alter it in some way to get around this very vague accusation, right? They don't say, at 32 minutes and 48 seconds was the beginning of some infringing content. They just say copyright violation. And I know YouTubers talk about this quite a bit as well. So this is the way it works. In this case, it was a good thing, like I said, and I'm not angry at Spotify in the slightest, but it does give cause. It does give pause. Maybe it does give cause. It made me remember that I really should be practicing what I've been preaching and publish my audio programs for myself, on my own publicly available platform, and then link to it. There, the infrastructure for syndicating feeds, the RSS feed, has been around for decades as well. Or, no, I haven't gotten there yet. It's been around for decades. Next section. I should be publishing on my own platform and syndicating elsewhere, right? On my own server, on my own servers. I should use Spotify in that sense of the word. I should use Spotify as an additional or secondary channel. And I've talked about this before. I should treat my own work, my own effort, my own creative works, my own product, my own service, my own whatever I'm doing, I should treat it as important. I should not say, I'll let someone else deal with it. And it will be up to them to decide if they judge it to be problematic, even though it isn't. So I own my stuff. I share it on other platforms. If they decide, hey, you know what, we don't like your stuff anymore at all, we're going to close your account. And by the way, I will add that Spotify did close an account. I don't know why. Luckily, it was going to be changing direction anyway. So the old content is fine. I still have it. I still have it locally. I could publish it for anyone who wanted it. But the fact is the audio program is going to change. So, okay, the old stuff is removed from Spotify's platform. Surprising, no reason given, no notification sent, no email received. So this is another case. Now, in this case, I'm not as forgiving. That seems like a huge red flag. So being aware, and how many horror stories did you hear about YouTubers during the adpocalypse, losing their monetization at scale, so dropping their income, their revenue streams by 25, 50%, unable to pay people. You know, if you have an ongoing business and you have that much risk, you have to mitigate it. So this is kind of the point of this whole episode, is to own your presence, own your interface. So like your audience, if they're entirely on YouTube and YouTube shuts your account for whatever reason, and this has happened, now maybe you're publishing distasteful things, but also maybe they just don't want your content anymore. What is their responsibility to you? Read the fine print. So you and your audience should have a relationship outside of YouTube, outside of Twitter, outside of TikTok. You know, if TikTok does end up getting shut down and you depend entirely on TikTok, you as a business person, if it's a business, you as a business person should be concerned about your own risk mitigation, right? You should own your content. You should own your access to your audience, right? You should be able to contact your audience, or they should be interested in hearing from you, regardless of whether it's TikTok or something else. If they are only interested in you because of TikTok, well, that's a different problem. That's something you'll have to consider if TikTok, and the same, if I only have my audience on X or YouTube or Reddit, well, those are no longer available to you for whatever reason. What are you going to do? So speaking of what to consider doing, the somewhat good news, network connectivity is reaching levels where most of what we want to do online can be done self-hosted. Static IP addresses notwithstanding, but you can get around that. Dynamic DNS and so on. You can maybe not self-host completely in your home or home office or wherever, in your workplace, at your university, or wherever you can carve out a little niche online that won't be disturbed by policy. Just give me some bandwidth and a public, port 80. No, port 443. What was I thinking? Secure sockets. TLS, actually. Or we can at least publish in such a way as we control most of the system, right? We don't hand everything over to YouTube. If you hand your entire brand over to X or Blue Sky and then they decide that you're not welcome anymore, your entire brand disappears. So don't do that. Hosting on a cloud service, still risky. Amazon or Microsoft or any of the others, DigitalOcean, Google, Linode, which then got bought by Akamai. So suddenly that changed, right? Hey, I'm a big supporter of Linode. Wait, what? Now you're Akamai? Oh, I don't like Akamai. So things could change. They could always claim a terms violation and shut your whole thing down. Who knows, right? Now, I'm not saying they would immediately or chaotically, but you never know if something gets triggered or something looks strange. Just like my Spotify scenario from last night. Their automated system flagged my content for a copyright violation, probably because it didn't know what to do with the essentially screechy garbage that was audible, but certainly horrible. So it's, I don't know, copyright violation. So whatever their AI came up with was not accurate, but still triggered a series of actions, a takedown and an email notification that said I violated copyright. Like, that doesn't seem right, and it wasn't. And it could even be a DMCA claim, a Digital Millennium Copyright Act claim, where someone says, you're violating my copyright. And then I believe wherever the hosting platform is, regardless of Section 203, is it? Protections, they're required to take it down until the copyright claim can be resolved. And this happens on YouTube as well, frequently from what I understand. So slowly but surely, though, parity platforms and tools. So these are similar functionality, similar in maybe even look and feel. These are becoming mature. They're maturing into usable form. if they aren't already. The Fediverse is one example that's catching on broadly, but the internet has been working just fine at the base level for decades, really. Internet Relay Chat, IRC, and its various derivatives, although IRC still very much alive and in use today. Email, of course, still around. SMTP, with all of its flaws, still cranking it out. Network news, sometimes called the Usenet News, started in 1983, still going. That, by the way, Usenet News, distributed, decentralized information sharing. So news articles, if you're not familiar, look like email. So they just have a little bit extra information about news group, distribution servers and stuff. And so when you can read news, that was the famous distraction in college. You're reading news. Well, we're not going to see you again for a few months. So once you start reading news, you can read all day, all night, all you want. The servers connect to each other in what's called a peering relationship. So one server will share all of its Usenet news feeds with another server, and that's not too far away from how email works, store and forward. Right? So if you post an article to your news group on your server, so maybe alt binaries, pictures, Pokemon, and so you've posted there, you've you encoded it or MIME encoded it, base64 MIME encoded, MM encode, I think it is. You've posted this image, and now as an email message essentially. MIME encoding, multi-purpose internet mail extensions work on Usenet news posts or news posts in general. So you've just as if you've attached an image and you've sent it to a mailing list. Similarly, you can send it to a news group. Your local news server, whichever one you've posted it to, will then share all of its posts with its peers in their peering relationships. So now your post on your server will get shared to its peers, and its peers can then reshare with its other peers. And so your post once will be visible in perpetuity across all of these peering relationships. Who knows how many servers on which your message will appear? So yes, Usenet can become quite burdensome with storage, but the fact is we've had decentralized message forwarding and message sharing. One server goes down, that's okay. It's still on 50 other ones. So the notion of like one monolithic superpower, called Meta or Alphabet or whatever X, they're a single point of failure. Something like Usenet or the Fediverse, now you have opportunities to say, oh, that server is going away. Okay, I'll move all my stuff to a different server. Honestly, there should be an easier way to mirror your own content as you're publishing it, so you don't have to actually transfer it so much as just pick up and move. But generally speaking, that has been thought through. So you got your news, and then there have been more things. I mentioned RSS earlier. There are ways to syndicate your content so other people can discover it. So that's more of a pull relationship. So Usenet is pushing content to peers. I think it's pushed. It could be pulled. It could be that your peers are asking for updates. I don't remember, to be honest. Mail is pushed. So my mail server will knock on the door of your mail server and say, hey, I got some email. Here it is from... it's being delivered to your server, and it might go through different servers depending on how the network is configured in that case. Bottom line is these are problems that have been solved. Have they been solved perfectly? Not always. Have they been solved functionally and usefully? Yes. That's why they're still around. They're proven, and they're still in use today. And there are more. Like I said, RSS is a pull protocol, so a little spider will come by and read your RSS feed for the last whatever your time to live, and they'll say, or the robot or spider will say, oh, this file has changed. Let me read it, add it to the database, and any number of spiders can do that. So now you can publish in one place and syndicate. RSS 2.0 is really simple syndication. RSS 1.0 is RDF site summary. Same idea. Now you are publishing to anyone who wants to consume your content, and it will appear, if it's a podcast, it'll appear on however many podcast indexes. If it's a blog post, it will appear wherever people are subscribing to it, and so on and so on. So, do you need to switch to these? Do you need to switch to using Usenet News? You're probably already using email. Do you switch to IRC? No, you could. but you don't need to. You can use them in parallel, which I do, but do be aware. Polish and reach, these are, the Facebook user interface and the icons and the emojis and the animated whatever and GIFs, and they're polish and they reach more people because of eye candy and distraction. They're things you get in exchange for your persona. You've handed over your profile picture, your personal information, your activity history, your friend network. So Facebook knows everybody you know. So does everybody else. You've handed over some of your privacy in that process. Commercial platforms make money on what you have given them. IRC does not. I don't know if that's good or bad, but probably good. Good for us. Slowly but surely is probably the safe way to consider mitigating some of your exposure, some of your risk. And again, not just social media. Social media is a separate, sort of a more egregious thing. Always maintain local copies of your stuff. Videos, pictures, contacts, emails, messages, documents. All things that if you lost them tomorrow, think fire, think hurricane, think flood, think theft, burglary, think angry partner, angry anyone who decides they want to delete your stuff or damage whatever it is. All things that if you lost them tomorrow, you would be sad or mad or in real trouble. You can decide what kind and how much trouble, but it could be confidential invention information. It could be a deposition that's not supposed to be public if you're an attorney. It could be anything. You never know. If you store information online, consider alternate platform backups. Are you using Dropbox? Are you still using Dropbox? I actually still use Dropbox free tier for a decade now, more. You can copy the important stuff to a Google Drive and keep them in sync. So now you have 2 copies, maybe in 2 free places. Obviously encrypt these items if you are the least bit concerned about server-side document scans or theft if there's a breach. Google Drives got breached and the files of 1 billion users were compromised. You don't want to hear that. And that has happened, not at that scale, but it's happened where people's accounts get hacked or there's some sort of a breach and then all their stuff is unencrypted and it's there for the taking. Now, Google does claim that they encrypt at rest, which means your files stored on the Google Drive are encrypted under Google's control, but maybe I should just leave it there. But be intensely aware how your personal devices are configured and what software from Apple and Microsoft and other players out there, what are they doing? Client-side scanning is a real thing and a real risk. Recently on your Windows desktop even, you've seen this, did they call it Copilot on Windows? No, it was sort of with an R, right? Like, it wasn't replay, but it was something, whatever it was a service that was just going to keep watching your screen and capturing everything and then replay? Maybe that was it. So you could go back, what did I do? What was I reading there? Well, you're enabling your operating system to see and remember and analyze and maybe perhaps upload everything you're doing on your computer. No benefit of end-to-end encryption or anything else. If you can see it on your screen, so can anyone else in that scenario. So end-to-end won't help you. And the same is going to happen on phones. It's already happening on the iPhone, Apple's product, and maybe it's happening on Android as well. To some degree, like I said earlier, protecting you from contraband. What does that really mean? Not trying to be paranoid, just being real, practical. Learn how to use encryption tools to the extent that they'll protect you from anything. For documents and for communications. No, really, you should be familiar at least a functional level, out of an abundance of caution, perhaps, just to understand what's happening. This is not paranoia so much as practicality. If you wouldn't post it on Twitter, maybe you should be encrypting it. Documents, evidence. Maybe you don't want everyone to see it. Well, I didn't publish it on social media. Well, you had it in a way that people could reach it or get to it. Consider adopting open source operating systems, applications, and methodologies. But open source isn't secure. Well, you can look at all the source code and decide that for yourself, right? And it isn't just you. You have how many eyeballs that check on these things because they're actually paranoid in a good way. Maybe Linux, open source applications on your own computer, open source services on your own hosted systems, if you can get that going, and a certain amount of attention paid to what is happening in the tech world. Open source is the way to see how things work. And the people who enable this arena of possibility are keenly aware of these details to make their own stuff work and for the world to see. So, How does Twitter work? It's hard to say. That some of it's, I think he open sourced some algorithm parts, but who knows? Who knows what are they boosting? And this came up back in the Jack Dorsey days. Are they shadow banning someone? Do they have the capability to boost and hide different posts? Yeah, of course they do. They're here to make money. They want to feed people what they want, not what you want to publish. The Fediverse, no algorithms, or you can see them if they are using them. You can download your own. You can deploy your own Mastodon or Lemmy or PixelFed, or there are several mature, good enough to use in real life platforms out there that can interoperate with the Fediverse, with ActivityPub, sharing, following, notifications, and so on, and Activity Stream, structured data. These things all work open source. You can use them tomorrow. Often free, but maybe if you want to pay, you're not the product anymore. You get the service that you want and configured and deployed the way you want it. But the people that are developing these things are just as interested as you are in how things work and how they should do what they say, and not grab your private information and share it in ways that you're not comfortable or even aware of. So it's not a bad place to hang out, the world of open source. Take it slow. There is no way you're going to learn how everything works and migrate into a new relationship with your data, your devices, and with technology in general in a weekend. This is not something you're just going to do Friday afternoon and be done on Saturday afternoon or Sunday morning. Understanding the pieces you depend on, the pieces that would be problematic if they were suddenly public or gone, the pieces you can take control of sooner with more later. Just do that. Start there. Do I want to have all my data on my Google Drive, or should I have a copy on my on a floppy disk? That's kind of a funny image, isn't it? I need a floppy drive so I can store data on these big giant 8-inch floppy disks. Technology is like a car. Basically, they're the same now. Initially wonky and weird, then mainstream but user serviceable. Think Volkswagen, right? When you were younger, depending on how old you are now, did you ever work on your own car, or maybe someone in your family would work on their car or help you work on your car, whatever it was, right? These are user serviceable. They were able to be repaired. The right to repair, for example, is a thing, real thing. You could repair them. You could go get parts at a supply store for automobiles, automotive mechanics, tools, etc. Maybe you needed a metric tool set, but otherwise you were pretty much always able to fix, repair, modify. Then more and more complicated. Now I need an ODB2 device to plug into the port, and software, proprietary software to download the data from the computer. I can't run all the diagnostics. I'm not sure what's happening. There's no more distributor. I can't figure out what the timing is. I don't know what the advance is for whatever. Who knows, right? So now you got to take it to a professional certified mechanic. And now verging on complex. Like if your car's driving itself with no steering wheel, you're just a passenger, and who knows what's going on, right? Same is happening with all technology. So do you know how your cell phone works? Do you know how your tablet works? Do you know if your computer is uploading screenshots every 10 seconds of your day-to-day use? Do you know? Do you know? If you don't know how your car or your technology works, you won't know what to do when they don't. Or worse, when they work against you. And you can argue in many cases that may already be happening. So there you go. I didn't want to sound too paranoid. I just want to kind of put that out there. It really struck me last night, and it wasn't Spotify being in any way adversarial. They were doing their thing. And like I said, it was convenient that they located this, because I literally assumed the audio was fine. It was getting late. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, my computer, no, I didn't mention it at the top of the show. My computer has been crashing only when I run Audacity, the audio editing tool. It's otherwise been about 95% stable. This is the fact of life when you're running the Debian unstable branch. So every once in a while, a kernel module, in this case AMD GPU, or maybe it's the GNOME front end that they're just not jibing. Kernel version 6.13 with new AMD GPU updates specifically are coming out. So I'm guessing that the last 2 weeks now that this has been an issue has been a question of developer time going into the software update, not fixing a bug in an unstable kernel. It's right there in the name. So that's the way it goes. But either way, I wanted to just publish this audio. and and publish the episode. It's supposed to be published yesterday. I wanted to get it up there. It was already late by the time I discovered this. I had to re-record it and then try to edit it, and computer crashed, of course. So before you know it, it's like 8 o'clock because I didn't do my duty in the morning. And so Spotify was not being nefarious. They were not being evil. They were not being adversarial. But they did misidentify copyright violation potential. They did take down an episode. What if they decided all of my audio was somehow infringing or against their terms? What if they decided my entire channel was problematic? And I already mentioned Spotify did take down a different channel. I hadn't published anything on it in a while, but we're getting ready to relaunch it in a new direction. So the old stuff was going to stick around. Now that's not an option. But I do have local copies of everything. So in that case, it kind of worked out. But in the real world, if this had been unexpected but also ridiculously undesirable, hey, all of my episodes are just gone. Wait, my whole entire account is gone. What's going on here? Hello? And you just don't get to decide that. So publishing on your own website, buying a domain name is reasonably cheap still to this day. I'll tell you that when I first bought reallycool.com, my business domain, it was for my company, Really Cool Technologies LLC, that was $75 back in the day. Now you can get a .com domain for 99 cents sometimes, or promotional $20 to renew, whatever it is. So these are well within the reach of most people to just have a presence online, have either a home server or use cloud services. But either way, try to reduce your vulnerability to terms changes, keep local copies, etc. This is a topic that will be worthy of discussion for the rest of our lives, for the rest of the time when technology is a part of those lives, and cars too, actually. So it's something to think about, and I hope you are thinking about it, and I think about it a lot, especially with little wake-up calls. So now I really want to move self-publishing the audio programs up on the list. My to-do list is too big, too many things, too many different directions. But this is a reminder yesterday that this is an important thing. I wouldn't want to have to deal with this after. I would like all of my content to be accessible for the small. It's not, I don't have millions of listeners, but hey, if somebody likes to listen to these audio programs, I like to make them. We should be able to interoperate and not be beholden to an agency in the middle that says, nope. That's where I'm going to leave it for today. Thank you for listening as always. Make sure you keep track of where I am, just in case Spotify makes any other strange decisions. You can always find at Buy Me a Coffee and Ko-fi profiles linked in the show notes for this episode. Take it easy. Bye-bye.